Thanks for joining us. This is The Why on Scripps News. I'm Lauren Magarino, and on The Why, we aim to bring clarity behind the headlines and bring some curiosity to trends making waves. Now, if you have a road trip coming up or even just a trip to the grocery store, you can expect to spend some time in traffic. But what if this wasn't an obstacle and you never had to worry about sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic? Flying cars present that opportunity, but they're not a reality yet. And this half hour, we're asking, why not? We'll look at the engineering puzzle, talk with the FAA about regulations, and speak with one company looking to take to the sky with a flying taxi. But first, James Packard looks at the history of the pursuit of a flying car.
It's a mode of transportation that's captured our imagination for years.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
The flying car. For over a century, we've dreamed of the ability to lift off from our driveways.
Americans are obsessed with flying cars because they see in that technology the ability to realize our dreams of freedom and mobility.
Janet Bednarek is an aviation historian and says our collective interest in a flying car elevates thanks to the invention of airplanes.
People began to think, well, what if we could combine the automobile with the airplane and have a flying car? Then we could have the best of both worlds. We could have the mobility on the ground and we could have mobility in the air.
But even before the Wright brothers took flight in 1903, there was a desire to fly. In 1856, French aviator Jean-Marie Le Bris developed an albatross-inspired glider for the skies. In one attempt, the early flying car contraption carried him nearly 300 feet off the ground. Fast forward to 1910, and American Glenn Curtiss designed a flying boat prototype. In 1919, the Navy used a later model for the first transatlantic flight, but it was a far cry from a flying car. Almost a decade later, and there's new hope for a machine that's part car, part plane. Inventor Sherman Fairchild produces a version with wings that fold. At the time, Popular Science magazine writes, "A serious competitor for space in the garage has just been built," and notes it can be driven along the highways like an automobile. In 1933, Eugene Vidal, the director of the U.S. Bureau of Air Commerce, announces a plan and competition to develop a personal aircraft. He even showed off one model with his son.
I think it'd be a good idea if we found out whether or not a 10-year-old youngster could handle it. What do you think?
Sure, I'll try it.
After World War II, Robert Fulton Jr. debuted the Airphibian, an aircraft car built so its wings could detach.
So you would take the wings off, the tail off, and you would actually kind of cart them around on a little trailer behind the rest of the vehicle, which could then go down the road.
The model received government approval, but it never caught on. Today, the pursuit of a personal flying vehicle is far from grounded.
We are one step closer to making this fantastic future real.
Joby Aviation wants you to be able to order an air taxi like you would an Uber by 2024. And Whisk Aero is aiming to be the first company with FAA certification for its autonomous passenger air taxi. But those are eVTOL aircrafts. That stands for Electric Vehicle Takeoff and Landing. And they use power to lift off and land vertically, but they aren't designed for a road like a car is. Many visionaries in the industry believe this may be the best path for a flying car-like vehicle to eventually take off. James Packard, Scripps News, Los Angeles.
Thanks to James for that. He mentioned Whisk Aero, a company working to develop pilotless air taxis, and we'll talk to them in just a bit to see where they are at in that process. But first, we want to bring in Ella Atkins. She's the head of the Department of Aerospace and Ocean Engineering at Virginia Tech University. Ella, thank you for joining us on The Why. And, we heard a bit about it, but could you briefly define the difference between a flying car and an eVTOL?
eVTOL means electric vertical takeoff and landing. The idea with that is that it's an aircraft that would operate typically in a clear area. VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, means that it has no wheels to drive around. It has some kind of gear that lets it touch down and lift off safely, but it couldn't drive on a road. A flying car has both the capability to drive steered, braking, accelerated on a road like other cars, typically with wings folded if it had wings, but then it also would need to be able to fly. The flying car has captured our imagination for several decades because we like this idea of getting out of our homes, getting into our garages, driving away from our house, flying, and then getting to work very quickly. But there are challenges with weight of having the drivability of the car that would be added on to the aircraft.
Okay, so you've got some challenges there. So it sounds like an eVTOL aircraft may be the more realistic route for now to achieve personal air travel, it sounds like. Would you say that's the case?
Absolutely. I think the eVTOL concepts, they're letting us get away from using fossil fuels to using hopefully greener energy production technologies so that we can charge batteries. And then when we fly, we're not creating pollutants in the atmosphere like we do today with either propeller driven or jet engine aircraft.
And that's pretty distinct because, you know, a lot of the air travel that we have now, there's a conversation around how green and environmentally friendly that is, and it's working to try to reduce that. So just hearing about this technology and the fact that it would be cleaner is very interesting. You know, from an engineering standpoint, why is having a personal aircraft in every garage so difficult to achieve? I know you mentioned weight, but what else?
First of all, we have to have an airspace and an air traffic management system that can account for people popping up from their garages and popping down into their garages every day from locations across the country and the globe. That's pretty hard because right now our system is mostly organized around published airports. Another thing is that we have to have trained operators. People learn how to drive a car pretty quickly, but even then, teenagers, I know as a parent, you're pretty nervous when your kid first goes out and drives themselves. If we're autonomous, the skill in driving may not be a thing. And I think that's why a lot of the eVTOL companies are going for full autonomy so that we don't have the need for the teenagers to drive safely. We also have maintenance that needs to be done quickly, efficiently, and at low cost. So that would make it hard for everybody to convert their car into an eVTOL today.
All right. Well, Ella Atkins from Virginia Tech University, thank you for your insight and joining us on the Why. And it's something that we'll have to keep an eye on how this all develops and comes into play. We hope we can avoid traffic and just be able to pull up into our garage easy. Thank you.
Thank you.